Adam, first of all, I mean, I'm just honored that you're making time for us because I feel like it's got to be so hard in your world, especially at this time of year, having any time. So it's so appreciated, man. When do you sleep at this time of year? What's a daily schedule like for Adam Schefter?
Well, the funny thing is when your guy Otto reached out to me to come on the podcast, he said, "Can you come on next week?" And I said, "No, I cannot do next week." And I don't like to say no to anybody, but next week is when we get all the firings and all the hirings and playoff games and like the next 2 weeks after this week are two of my least favorite weeks of the year because it's just crazy. And to sit on a podcast for an extended period of time, it would have been impossible. So I said, I could do it this week before it goes crazy next week. And so when you're asking about sleep, I'm not any different than anybody else. I just sleep in spurts. I just sleep irregularly. I don't sleep continuously, hardly ever. And that's
really?
Just how,
Never.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I think I shatter every TB12 method and theory that exists. But that is the way it goes. And, I had Troy Aikman on my podcast this week, and he's talking about water and sleep and all the things I wish I was doing a much better job of doing. But sleep is not something that I do in an extended period. It's just not.
How many cell phones are working right now? Is it 3?
You're on one. I got another one right here. We're just waiting to see if anybody decides to fire anybody a little bit early before next week begins.
Oh, my gosh.
So my question, what's the FPI, ESPN FPI for the Raiders winning this week? Beating the Chargers and getting into the playoffs?
We were at the week 4 matchup when they played out in L.A., and I think the Chargers won by 2 touchdowns. So you're a big Raider fan, CeCe?
I am.
Listen,
They're going to let me down again?
It's in Vegas. If I had to pick a team to win that game, I would pick the Chargers because I think they're the better team.
Yeah.
But it's in Vegas, so it's one game. Well, will I be surprised if the Raiders win? Not at all. Not at all.
They just never play good against teams in their division, so I'm a little nervous about it.
Well, look, we could say this safely. It's the biggest game that's ever been played in Las Vegas. The biggest game in Las Vegas franchise history. There's never been a bigger one in Las Vegas ever.
Man, it probably won't be right in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh man, Adam, with you mentioned the firings that could be coming. What happens with the Giants after this season? I mean, what changes do you see happening there, if any?
Well, again, a few weeks ago, I said that they were planning to keep Joe Judge, and they were. They were planning to keep Joe Judge, and they still might be planning to keep Joe Judge. But these last few weeks have not gone particularly well.
Yeah,
and I saw that press conference on Sunday or Monday where he's inviting fans to boo him and talking about what they built, and I'm thinking to myself, sometimes less is more. Fans don't want to hear from you when your team's playing like this. They just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that. There's nothing he could say that's going to make them feel better. So just keep it brief and focused instead of let it ramble for minutes on end with all sorts of explanations, irrational. It doesn't play in New York.
I was about to say, especially in this town.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. Show me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it time to move on from Saquon, you think?
Well, they have a lot invested in him, and that'll be purely a business decision because, again, you've got to make the decision, I think, to pick up his 5th-year option or not, right? He's going to want an extension. He's going to want to get paid now, as he should, because he's had an injury history. There's a lot of dynamics there. That's an interesting one. They paid him a lot already as the 2nd overall pick.
I was about to say they paid him a lot already. Like, I wouldn't be looking to extend him right now unless he plays a healthy season.
Yeah, but he's going to want more because he's a talented guy. But here's the thing. They're going to have a new GM making that decision. And the new GM is not going to have any allegiance to Saquon Barkley. And so I could speak for whoever gets that job and just say, yes, we'd like Saquon back at a number that works for us, whatever that number is. Now, is that going to work for Saquon? That's up for him and his agent to figure out the market and what it will bear. And then he can make a decision about what he wants to do. But if I'm the Giants, yes, I would want him back, but I'd want him back at my number. I just don't know if that number will work for him.
What about Daniel Jones, Adam?
again, you have a new GM making the decision, a new GM that didn't make that pick. And I think they like Daniel Jones. I do. And I think when it comes to Daniel Jones, this is the situation. You've got him in place. You've got him under contract. That doesn't preclude you from looking into Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers or whoever it is. You don't have to pay the full price. You don't have to trade for one of those guys. But I don't care how much you like Daniel Jones. I think you'd be remiss to at least not explore any potential upgrade that you could and see what comes out of it. And if, again, like we're saying, if it works for your team, great. If it doesn't, well, we got Daniel Jones. If it makes sense, we're going to make a move. If it doesn't, we got Daniel Jones. The plan is to keep him, but we don't know who's making the final call here. We don't know what the price on these other quarterbacks is going to be. We don't know which one is going to want to come to New York. There are a lot of variables. You want answers to questions that everybody wants that can't realistically be answered in the first week in January. That's why it would have been good. It would have been good to do this next week, but I couldn't do it next week. And the week after is also not great. So we do what we can now to answer the question.
That's it.
I can see Russ in New York, though. I mean, I think that could be a good fit if you can put some pieces around him. And if you could keep Saquon, I think he could work here.
You know what? I could see Sierra in New York.
Yeah,
that's a big one right there. That's a great fit.
That's a right fit. That's a right fit.
And we had that conversation before the pod started, so that could be the move.
You know we did.
Yeah, that could be the move. Adam, it's funny because you're talking about what it's going to be like for you the next couple of weeks and just how insanely busy it is with all the changes that'll transpire. I'm wondering, like, now there is sort of this behind the curtain acceptance when you're on TV a little bit that you could like have your phone out, right? And you could be responding to something even as you're doing a live hit. But we've sort of evolved to that place. And even still, I'm not sure you're going to go like walk off the set and take the call. Can you think of like, if I just paint that scenario, can you think of like a story of like you're on air, the time where you're most like, I need to take this call. I'm in the middle of being on air. I need to take this call. Like, can you think of like the top story that comes to mind with that scenario?
Well, I just know that free agent week, we have done shows at ESPN and we've done specials as the show's beginning. And so it's happened on multiple occasions, not to the point where we're doing a show in November, October, Sunday countdown, and I'm in the middle of a hit with Mort. And I look down and there's an incoming call from somebody I got it. But Mort, you take it from here. That's never happened. But in a free agent week, I think there's an understanding that it's fluid and things are happening. And if I have to leave the set, which I've done, I've walked off, like to just take call. I haven't done it mid-sense, been like, okay, I know, Justin Herbert's got a big game Sunday and he's going up against Derek Carr in the winning. Well, hold on, CC, you take it. I haven't done that. We haven't done that, but look, I don't view being on TV as my job. I view gathering and reporting information as my job. And if it happens on TV, like that's just the office in which I'm doing it. So if I have to leave the office to do my job, I don't really care. Like that's my job.
Yeah. No. So you mentioned Deshaun Watson earlier. What's the news on him? Is it quiet? Is it dead? Or is there teams out there interested? He's got a chance to play next year?
Well, we'll see how all these investigations and legal proceedings unfold during the offseason. Look, if the Texans wanted to, they could have trotted him out this year, right? Like there was nothing that stopped him from playing. The league didn't suspend him. The league's looking into it. The police are looking into it, but there haven't been any charges brought against him. So if that were the case, yeah, he could play next year. And I would think that the Texans make a big, bold trade for Deshaun Watson this offseason. He'll go somewhere else. Somewhere else will want him to play. It wouldn't shock me if there was some discipline that were attached, depending on what comes out of these investigations. So maybe he has to sit out some period of time, whatever that may be, whatever the league and legal officials deem appropriate. And then, if assuming all that is taken care of, yes, at that point, yeah, he would play.
Adam, without revealing all your secrets, we look at the top insiders in respective sports, and obviously with the NFL, we think of you. With the NBA, obviously Woj. when when you're going through, the process of becoming, this level of insider in a sport, how do you earn the trust of team personnel, player personnel? Like how does that process work without giving all your secrets? What would you say is just like, if you look back on how you got to this place, is like the number one key to your journey?
I don't view it so much as earning trust as I do building relationships. I think that's the difference, right? I've done this. I've covered the NFL since 1990, so it's 32 years. I'm 55 years old. And so I've done this a long period of time, and I've been fortunate enough to get to meet a lot of really smart, intelligent, interesting people. And so when you do this that long in any line of work, whether you're doing what you do, calling games, or what CC is doing, pitching and an analyze, like CC, when you're playing baseball, you built relationships up with teammates over time, right? Right.
Sure.
You've got relationships around the league, right?
Yeah.
And so if you comport yourself in a professional manner and do the right things, inevitably, not only are you building relationships, but you're building trust, right? Like, I guarantee that you guys have trust with various people that you've dealt with for years.
Yes.
So I don't view it as, building sources, building trust. They're just natural relationships that evolve, in which I try to do the right thing, honor my word, not violate people, and go from there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I even think about it just like being in the clubhouse at first, right? Like,
same thing.
Just trying to build, the way CC and I built our relationship was just being in the, I was in the clubhouse. CC had just got to the Yankees, and we would just talk about basketball. Like, and that was it was just like, there was no agenda there, right? It was just like, oh, I'm getting to know this person, And I mean, CC was obviously scouting a podcast co-host for years later. That's why he started talking to me. But other than that, yeah, I mean, and then all of a sudden you naturally learn things and evolve, and that tree grows.
But if at some point he says to you, Ryan, boy, this Derek Jeter's an asshole, and
right.
you go on there and say, CC says Derek Jeter's an asshole, right?
Yeah.
CC would not trust you again.
No.
Right?
Yes. 100%.
Everybody knows that about Derek Jeter. You didn't need to voice that, right? So
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Hey, see, you better clarify that just in case Jeet's listening.
Jeet don't listen to this podcast, sir, so don't worry about that. Hey, I got a chance to watch that Madden doc the other day, and just hearing his voice again, like, it brought me back. I brought my boys in to watch it. And I couldn't decipher whether I loved football as a kid or I loved him. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, because he was able to break the game down so well, help me understand coverages and everything else that was going on during the game. So I don't know if I would have watched football if it wasn't for, him being on every Sunday.
It's funny you say that, because I watched that special, All Madden. It's streaming on ESPN Plus now. If you have ESPN Plus, you could watch it when you're done listening to this great podcast. And as I watched it, that was the one thought that struck me. It brought me back to my youth and reminded me of how and why I fell in love with football.
Yes.
When I heard Madden and Summerall doing those games, I'm like, oh my gosh, how many Sundays did I have sitting there in front of the TV, watching these guys, listening to everything they said. And it took me back to being 15 years old and wanting to watch those games. And I love that show so much. Tom Rinaldi and Joel Santos, I think, co-directed it. I called Tom last week after it ran to just commend him and tell him what an incredible job he and his partner did on that show. I had my son, who's not a real big sports fan, sit down the night after I watched it. I watched it the night that John Madden died, and I made him watch it with me. And we got done. I go, "What do you think?" And he goes, "That was awesome. That was awesome."
Oh, that's great.
And so, anybody that hasn't seen it, go to ESPN Plus today, watch. It's an outstanding special. I just think it puts John Madden's place in history in its right spot. And you know what I loved about it? I love that. I don't know that he realized the impact that he made until he got to see all these people talking about how much he meant to them during this show.
Yeah, I think it was pretty cool that he got to watch it. Like we're watching him watch him react to, people, what he meant to people. So like sitting there, I really got goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't really know if I would have liked football if it wasn't for John Madden. I couldn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. But being a kid in the 90s, I mean, you had to, that was who you listened to.
And I think there was a feeling that he saw that on Christmas Day. He celebrated his 62nd wedding anniversary the next day, and then he died 2 days later. And I think there's a belief among some that he watched that and was at peace with his life. And like it was okay to go at that point in time. Now, who knows? Like, we'll never know, right? It's just a theory. But that's the deal. Hold on one second. I got
You got it.
Hey, are you at our house? Yeah, I'm just at a podcast. Can you come back at like 12:50? Was that a problem? Yeah. No problem. You got it. Okay. Bye. You got it. Thank you. But my wife's gonna be pissed off because she was waiting for UPS to come, and they came as I'm doing this, and the guy was ringing the bell, and I didn't get the bell. So I asked him if he could just come back. But anyway, sorry about that. I'm going to be at the doghouse later for doing this podcast.
I hope UPS comes back. It is see, I'm so glad you brought up Madden, and Adam, the way you're framing that is so true. Like, even for me, even though he didn't do play-by-play, he was one of the guys that made me want to get into calling games because you could feel the joy with which he called the game. And for me, as a member of the audience, the experience was so enhanced. Like, I used to love, and my dad and I would get such a kick out of him. He called me, Ryan, come on, when he break down the tailgates, and he's using the telestrator to break down the tailgates and it was just like, this guy's not forgetting that it's supposed to be fun.
He made the complicated simple. He appealed to every man. It just was a very basic thing. He as much success as he had, as much money as he made, as significant a figure as he was, you just felt like he was one of us, one of the guys, right? Mm-hmm. Just one of the people that was just watching and loving the game of football. And I think he had an appreciation. Like on my podcast, I read this story to Troy Aikman where in the first year the Cowboys didn't have Troy Aikman. Somehow the Cowboys radio network and Brad Sham got John Madden to come in and do the analysis on the radio, which was the first time he had done it on the radio. And at the end of the podcast, John Madden just said, Troy Aikman. And Brad goes, Troy Aikman. And John goes, I didn't think it was fair that we should have one of the first games for the Cowboys without Troy Aikman to not mention his name, considering all he accomplished. And I think that really showed how much he appreciated players and what they gave to the game. Like that's just him. That's just John Madden.
Man, it's awesome.
Hey, man, that's a great story. Hey, Adam, I have to ask you, Simpsons cameo. I mean, is there anything cooler than that, man? Then you were on one of the most iconic television shows of all time. What was the process like of seeing, yourself become a cartoon character on one of the greatest and most famous shows in the history of television?
Well, Bart Simpson's been a great source of mine for years now. and I appreciated Bart not only being a source, but then extending an invitation to invite me onto The Simpsons. And, I got invited last summer. I went and tracked some lines at a sound studio where I recorded my audio book back in whatever year that was, 2016 or so. So I went back into the studio where a bunch of musicians have actually tracked lines, and it's kind of cool to be in that studio in and of itself, and then to get to work for a show as iconic as The Simpsons. That was kind of, but you did it in August, Ryan and Cece, and honestly, you just kind of forget about it, and all of a sudden you get an email in the middle of December. You're like, "Hey, just want to give you a heads up. The Simpsons episode that you're in, that'll run January 2nd." And the only thing that I could think of, and that was probably bigger, but when they were doing the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner, there's a line in there where he's playing the Browns GM, Sonny Weaver, I think is his name, right? CC, I'm not a big pop culture guy, but he goes into his office and they play this line on my weekly radio Denver spot, every single time I come on, they put the line in where the secretary says to Sonny Weaver, Sonny, it's Adam Schefter on line. He goes, tell Adam Schefter to stick it up his ass. The Simpsons draft day, that line with Kevin Costner saying that in the movie, I think I could retire now. I think I'm good.
Yeah. Those are for real moments, man. It's so cool. It's so cool. Adam, how about if you were to, I mean, we see the year the Packers are having after all the drama with Aaron Rodgers and in the offseason, wondering if he was going to be there this season. If you were to describe just where they're at now and how they've been able to navigate this, I mean, how would you describe those two things?
Well, I think it's they've been the best team in football to me this year, and I think they're the favorite going into the postseason. And look, when Aaron Rodgers is playing for you, that's the kind of chance you have, and that's the position you are in because he's that good. And that's why it was a big deal, because he was uncertain about whether he would return, whether he wanted to return. And I still believe that decision literally went up to the week before he was going to report to training camp, before he knew that he was going to report. And again, that you see what happened. He's there. He reports. They're the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
If he didn't report, I still maintain they would have had a top 10 pick this year. That's what I believe. You can't, people could argue with me all they want about how good the roster is, but that's how much of a difference he makes. He makes them the best team in football. And without him, they're just another team.
Yeah, for sure. And his connection with Devontae, I think, is unbelievable. But there's another connection I want to talk about.
I want to thank them for my fantasy championship on Sunday night, one of my leagues.
But Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is right behind him too, though.
Oh, they're outstanding. Yeah, Devontae Adams, thank you very much. Debt of gratitude, and I'm going to make a donation in his honor to the charity that he chose. There's a gentleman by the name of Michael Gelkin, Dallas Morning News, that puts together a list of the top players' favorite charities. And he asked people that win their leagues to take a portion of their winnings and donate it to their players that came through for them in their charity. So I think Devontae, his charity I looked was, I think it was like it was the Fresno Fire Department or whatever it was. I got to look, but there'll be a donation going that way in honor of Devontae Adams and the championship that he brought me. Thank you, Devontae.
I know, though, CC, I know you're excited about the Bengals, man.
About what?
About the Bengals.
Oh, that's my new team. That's my new team. When the Raiders lose this week, I'll be riding with the Bengals in the playoffs.
I like it.
They're gonna be a force for years to come. They got some really good young players.
They do.
Adam, the Bengals right now, organizationally, what's the view of them? They were a consistent playoff team, never got over the hump, right? Then all of a sudden went back down to the bottom. This is obviously after decades of incompetence before those playoff years. But now having the combination, like what CeCe was just talking about with Burrow and Chase, what's the feeling like the rest of the organization right now? Is there a thought that like, hey, this is going to be sustainable success? Like they are going to have a shot now to finally knock down the door, win a Super Bowl. How would you kind of describe that?
I think maybe the greatest compliment that somebody could give them was I was talking to a front office guy at some point this season, in the middle of the year, and he said that the teams in the AFC North now are going to have to draft to stop the Bengals.
Wow.
So that when the Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers are drafting, they're going to have to draft defensive ends that can get Burrow, or wide cornerbacks that can cover Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, or safeties that can lend extra help. But when those other AFC North teams are drafting, they will be drafting specifically with the Cincinnati Bengals in mind. And that, to me, tells you everything about where they're at right now and the chances they have. And they remind me a little bit of a young 49ers or Cowboys team before they won a string of Super Bowls. You were just waiting for them to break through. You knew it was going to happen at some point in time. And I think that that's the kind of feeling you have with the Bengals. We'll see whether they can capitalize on it. But you have the sense that they're this young team that's going to win a Super Bowl. You just don't know how soon it will be and when it will happen.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be describing Joe Burrow the way you just described Aaron Rodgers. If he shows up to training camp on your team, you're going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Well, that could be. He's looked that good. And not only is he that good, but just the swagger and attitude that he brings. Like, he's just got that thing going on.
He's under control. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's under control. It's awesome to see.
He looks like a cool dude.
He does.
He does.
He's made Cincinnati cool and trendy and hip. And when's the last time? That hasn't happened since Boomer played quarterback.
That's right. I bet you're going to get your Burrow jersey if you don't have it yet.
I can't put another NFL jersey on that.
Only
Raiders. No, I can't do that.
you could just speak on the podcast about rooting for another team.
I can root for him, but I can't put a jersey on.
All right, Adam, we know you have the Packers as the best team in football and thus, the favorites to come out of the NFC. The AFC, things, are a little tighter. I know the Chiefs obviously have found their way, the latter part of the season, but are they your favorites? How would you kind of couch the AFC right now?
To me, the AFC is wide open. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans were tough enough at home to win 2 games and go to the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs were able to do it on the road with Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals broke through. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills or Patriots came out of, like, you can make an argument on all these teams because they're all good in the AFC. To me, it's a great loaded, packed playoff field this year. And I don't know that you could just look at one of these teams and say, this is it. If I'm picking a Super Bowl today, and I wouldn't feel good, I'd probably pick the Packers and Chiefs. But it could be the Titans and the Cowboys. It could be the Bills and the Buccaneers. Like, we don't know. I mean, there are 100 different ways it could go, right? So that'll be the great mystery of this postseason, and it should be a lot of fun to watch.
I would love to see the Bills break through. That'd be awesome.
Oh, me too. Just for those fans.
Yeah,
that city. It'd be great. Adam, you're the best, man. Thank you so much for spending all this time with us, and good luck going and getting the UPS, man.
Yeah, I think that... like if I need Ryan, if I get kicked out of my house tonight, do I have an invitation to stay at your place tonight?
Always.
I had one assignment today. Make sure that the UPS packages were picked up. I screwed it up.
You better go find that truck.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you, man. You're the best.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.